Good morning.
Hey.
This is the Privateer Press Dev Talk live stream for the 9th of October. If you are joining us for the very first time, we schedule our live streams a couple of days a week, and then we have some special ones that are a little bit less scheduled. So every Wednesday at 10 a.m. we do a dev chat, and every Thursday at 10 a.m. we do a Get Your Paint On. Then we also have a hobby hangout, and the next one of those is this Friday, the 11th. And we do a staff showdown every couple of weeks where we play a game, and we are playing War Machine on October the 14th, which is next Tuesday. So you can join us a lot of times to watch us talk about things. During the dev chats, we usually talk about games, what we're working on, what's coming up, exciting things that are happening with the rules, but we also sometimes talk about models and show off things like that.
Yeah.
And Get Your Paint On, Jordan and now Tony paint something and talk about painting processes.
Tony's painting now?
We set up a second camera so they can both be painting the same model, and Tony can be trying to emulate Jordan's awesome skills, and it kind of works.
All right, I believe it.
I guested on the show recently to talk about Nova, and so we have a third mic, and we will eventually possibly bring in extra painters that aren't just Tony. But we want to test it for a little while with Tony Cam.
Not me. Do not choose me.
Last time when I was on, somebody asked if me or Hungerford was going to get on a paint, and I told them I would probably not be a painting guest because I paint, but I don't paint.
Yeah, I paint barely tabletop quality.
Yeah.
I'm just not very good.
Also, if you're watching us on Twitch right now, we turned on subscriptions recently, and we hit the very first cool number, which was 65, to get an extra emote. So we started with 6 emotes, which you can see on the screen right now. We added Chibi Eris recently due to a poll that all you guys voted on. And we are now 1 sub away, just one. We're at 99 if we get 100 subs.
So one more to 80.
Oh, one more to 80, sorry. One more to 80. Tony's information is
Inaccurate.
No, it's not inaccurate.
Then after 80 is 100 we can do.
100 is the next one.
Since we're so close to
number
this
9.
finish line.
So we're at 89, 79 numbers. When we hit 80, we get an extra emote, and we're going to add Chibi Ashlyn. Because we did Chibi Eris, and Chibi Ashlyn was the second place in the voting. And then when we get to 100, we get another emote. So as we get more and more subscribers, we're going to do more and more things. We don't have any kind of little dancing animated subscriber thing right now, but when we notice it in the chat, we will thank you guys. We're going to do some MiniCrate announcements. If you're followers of MiniCrate at mini-crate.com, you can get cool, interesting models from us that are not standard. And right now, Akodo Totori, the Legend of the Five Rings MiniCrate, just started. So you have a month from when a MiniCrate starts to get in on that. If you do a big subscription for 6 months, you get all of them automatically and a VIP, but you can also subscribe by the month. So that's the brand new Legend of the Five Rings MiniCrate. And Belit, the Savage MiniCrate, is October 12th for the last day to subscribe. So that's this Saturday. So if you want that Belit, then get in there and subscribe. Either for the month or for the 6-month subscription, and King Conan is still the VIP for that. We've got some cool community stuff we want to keep mentioning to you guys, and we want to ask you if you're doing anything cool in the community, then tag us on whatever social media you're following us on, and let us know, because the Chain Attack guys are doing an Oblivion campaign podcast. They have played the entire Oblivion campaign, and they are podcasting about it. And you can find out more at chain-attack.tv and all the rest of the stuff that's on the screen right now. So if you are also doing something cool, like you're playing the Oblivion campaign, or you stream Monpoc frequently, or whatever, then hit us up on social media, and we will also push out information about that on our various feeds. Have you got a chance to listen to this yet?
No,
I have not.
I listened to regular Chain Attack and then those guys convincing about it. I might eventually pick it up.
I've been slacking off a lot lately. I haven't got a chance to listen to it.
I want to point out that we did get our 1 sub.
Oh, we got it.
So
Ashlyn?
after this, after this
the
broadcast,
prototype-
I will be putting up the new emoji, so that should be available very soon.
Yeah, cool.
Was it Prototype gave us some bits or something? Was it Mobolts? Because that's another subscriber in there. Or Rata24. Okay, Rata24 was our 80th subscriber.
Yay.
Thank you very much for giving us a brand new emoji. And also, if you're a subscriber, you get
runtime.
runtime. So we've
Okay.
gotten so many subscribers in the last few minutes. We can't even keep track of who was the one that got the 80th for us. But also, I didn't mention, if you're a subscriber, you also get that cool Scully badge as your chat emoji. So everybody right now that's got that on the side of the screen is
A subscriber.
a subscriber. So Tony took away my announcement screen.
Oh, no.
There's no more announcements. I hit them all. I wasn't sure.
Well,
there was
except
one
for-
last little thing.
Yeah. The Archon cards.
Well, we were going to roll into that after announcements, so
Oh.
it wasn't technically an announcement.
But it's a pseudo announcement.
But it's the last kind of announcement. So we've been talking about this on social media and also on the Insider.
Yep.
Due to the move, and we're going to be mentioning the move frequently because the move
It's
was
really still happening.
it was substantial, and there are still some things that are up in the air. Like some of the machines aren't quite plugged in and running, and some of the offices are still waiting on finishing touches to get people moved into there. So there's a little bit of wackiness going on. And since we were down for customer service and for some shipping and that kind of stuff, we wanted to say thank you to everybody that was patient with us and give you all a special tchotchke. So everyone knows that the Archons are coming soon, or some of them have already been released. And if you are part of this special thank you, which you can find out about on all of our social media feeds, you can get full art cards for all 6 of the Archons if we send out your shipment that we've been waiting on or whatever.
So any shipment that is currently in processing, including mispacks that are currently in processing, we'll just get them automatically. You don't need to contact us, it'll just happen. But if you experience slowdowns between lock and load to now, feel free to email frontdesk@privateerpress.com with the name Archon cards and your name and your address, and we will just ship those out for free.
And you'll notice that these Archon cards are special in 2 ways. They're full art, but they also only have 1 stat bar because we wanted to make plenty of room for the art, especially the bunny on the Duty and Archon. So these are not 100% standard cards, but they function in every way like a standard card. And they are our special thank you to everybody for being patient with us during the move. Okay, so that was the last pseudo announcement.
That was on to
We
Monpoc.
rotate topics during these shows, and the topic this month is Monsterpocalypse. We're going to do a Riot Quest show pretty soon. We'll get back to War Machine eventually. And like I said, next week's game is going to be a War Machine game. But today we're going to talk about Monsterpocalypse. So we usually try to preview releases a month ahead of time. And so we're going to talk about November releases today. The first thing we're going to do is the guard stuff. So we don't have finished, fully laid out cards because of the move. We didn't get as much playtesting in the last 2 weeks as I would like. So these models are almost completely final, but we're going to playtest them this afternoon to make completely sure that everything is locked in.
Yeah, any changes at this point will probably be pretty minor.
Yeah, and so I will mention as we go through these what parts of these are more final than others. So the very first thing we have is Nova, her alpha card. And we went ahead and threw some concept art in there to make these images look a little bit more interesting. This is our playtest PDFs.
They're very boring, but that's okay.
But anybody who's done a CID has seen a playtest PDF. Okay, so Nova is the fastest guard monster.
Oh yeah, definitely.
In every single way possible. Nova is all about movement all the time.
Yeah.
So you're going to notice some things about Nova. First off, she has 5 health in both her forms. So she's the weakest when it comes to hit points of all 3 of the guard monsters so far. She also has high mobility and flight inherently, so she can hover over hazards and those kind of things. And she has action sprint in her alpha form, which makes her a little faster. She's speed 6, and then when she wants to, she can move 3 more spaces with that action. So she's going to be moving around the board a lot in both forms, and in this form, she can go up to 9 spaces in a single activation, not counting getting bonuses from the industrial complex or motivator
Yeah.
or tectonic shift on the Mount Terra building or any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but probably her most interesting feature and the hardest to balance in alpha was that we wanted multi-fire on a monster in alpha. And she got it. She got multi-fire, but
Yeah.
man, did we have to make those boost dice small.
If you look at her stats, she has almost unit stats on her gun. She has 2 boost dice, which is what really good units have, like elites and that kind of stuff. She has more white dice because it's always nice to be able to push her luck a little bit further. But an alpha monster that can fire 3 shots is pretty powerful. So we dialed it back to that she's basically using small arms fire for a monster. So I mean, it's like giant machine guns, but they're still only capable of taking out units.
Right.
So she can pretty easily take out 3 flying units because they usually have def 1 or 2. She can even, if she gets lucky or throws some red dice in, take out a couple of G-tanks or something like that. But she's going to have to spend extra resources to make that happen.
Yeah. She is very, very, very good at board control. I've had a lot of success with her just hanging out on the opposite side.
My microphone.
On the opposite side of the board, just killing things. You usually target two small units in like a building, just as like, well, if I roll a bunch of doubles, I'll destroy that building too. Why not?
If you heard weird things happening, Tony had to wrangle my microphone. It's really cold in our office.
I had
also,
to ghost over there. Yeah.
so I left my sweatshirt on today because I'm kind of freezing. And so it's a little bit more wobbly than normal.
Yeah, we had a
So-
very cold day here in Washington.
Also, I don't know, the heat has been acting funny.
Yeah.
So Tony's got a warm studio, but
does.
I'm still kind of cold from being out in the rest of the warehouse.
Yeah.
So the last thing that's really important about that entire dice stat situation is she's going to have a hard time hurting monsters without dumping resources in.
Yeah.
Up to 5 white dice is still only on average going to get you 2 or 3 hits. And 2 blue dice is going to be a little bit better than 1 hit average.
Yeah.
So if you want to shoot a monster, you have to throw a bunch of power dice in. So she's not going to be putting a lot of pressure on monsters in her alpha form with her gun.
Yeah.
And you can't shoot the same target more than once with multi-fire. That's really important. So you can't just machine gun 1 monster 3 times. So while she is very powerful in the anti-unit game in alpha, she's not as powerful against monsters. But then she goes hyper. Okay, so I threw
I
her.
like the different concept art.
I put together this
very
stuff.
nice.
I threw the pose on there because it's cool to see what like pose inspiration is for these kind of things. So she goes up to speed 7 in hyper because she loses sprint.
Yeah.
So she's inherently more faster, but she doesn't have the options to become even more faster because we wanted to shift what she could do.
Right.
So she becomes a lot more reliable in hyper mode because of that action fission. And if you were watching Get Your Paint On last week, we spoiled this a little bit. This is a really interesting ability for a lot of situations because it says as long as you have 1 action die, you can get an extra action die.
Yeah.
So by the math, it says it's a 1 action die action, and it lets you push 2 action dice from your unit pool to your monster pool, and that effectively gets you 1 action die because the one you spend comes back to you for free.
Yeah.
Now this is not going to help you if you've been keeping 1 action die in your pool very much. I mean, it will still get you a bonus action die, but a lot of times for insurance, you leave 1 action die in your monster pool just to be able to move your monsters around.
Yeah.
This is not going to do a lot in that regard, but if you have a full 10 dice monster turn, it gets you an 11 dice.
Yep. Yeah, and if you only have that 1 die, you can use action fission and then activate somebody like Sergeant Titanica, who can use those 2 dice and then get 1 back. You can, there's a lot of action dice efficiency if you combine her with another action dice efficient monster.
Yeah. And then the other thing about her that changes drastically is her gun. So she goes from her wrists have like crazy giant machine guns in them, but they're still not big compared to monsters, to firing some sort of really strong weapon, whether it's her head lasers or her chest beam or whatever she has. Because that's up to you. That's your narrative.
Yep.
You describe the monsters doing whatever you want the monsters to do. That's why we don't put specific abilities on the names of weapons and stuff.
Yeah.
Like this is the giant cannon.
Yeah, instead you'll just point out various
Yeah.
things and name things, which is
So
fun.
she goes to hit and run, which is another movement shenanigan ability, and weapon master.
Yeah.
So her gun range also goes up to 5, so she can get a lot more coverage on the board that way, and she can threaten monsters a lot because her boost dice goes up to 5, and her action die goes all the way to 8.
Yeah.
So she gets substantially better at fighting monsters in her hyper form with her gun than when she was in alpha. And she keeps a little bit of that movement stuff because if she hits somebody, she can shift around afterwards.
Yep, yeah, she's very fast, very tactical, very consistent monster that should play pretty differently from the other 2 guard monsters.
Yeah. And like Faye was saying, she combines pretty well with Sergeant Titanica and a few other monsters that can do other movement / dice resource shenanigans. Hey Tony, can we switch to the model camera real fast?
Ooh.
Oh, yeah.
So we're still unpacking a bunch of models. Oh, it went out of focus. Oh no.
I'll fix it. Keep
It
talking.
was so in focus. So we're still unpacking models. All this. Somebody posted a picture on our Twitter of you and Jordan unpacking models a couple weeks ago, but they're not all unpacked yet. But I managed to find Nova when I was coming over here. So this is what Nova looks like in real life.
I think she's only 4 parts. Somebody asked how many parts she's made of.
We talked about that on the painting stream last week. We believe that she's arms as one piece, backpack as one piece, and then maybe head.
Yeah, I think it's
Keep
head and
sliding
then
her
body.
slightly over. So yeah, she's got this cool cloud under her feet with some chunks of whatever.
Yeah, she's
around
flying out
down
of some
there.
rubble that she just
Yeah.
destroyed a building, and she's just
got
flying
all-
through it.
She's got her wrist machine gun situation going on. She's got a pretty cool backpack, but she still, excuse me, she still conforms to those guard things, like with her ears and all that kind of stuff, or her head wings, whatever you want to call those things. I like to think of them as weird ears.
I definitely don't think they're ears.
They're weird ears.
They've got exhaust ports.
They also have lasers built into them.
Okay, I guess.
Yeah. So
that's what ears are now.
So that's what Nova looks like in the real life. Okay, so now we're going to talk about guard units. So people have seen renders of these. We don't have models for these, but I did throw the concept art on this stuff. So the first one is the exosuit, and we're only going to do the elite version of any models with an elite and a grunt because there was only one slight difference in these. But the exosuit gives you another interesting way to hold territory as a protector player.
Yeah.
So G-tanks have been the standard, high defense, get a bonus if they don't move, so they can fight back, but they're not good at moving around and fighting because they're such high defense.
Yeah.
These guys are a little faster than a G-tank and a little less defensive, so they basically trade 1 speed for 1 defense.
Yeah.
And they are better at punching, of course. So the thing that the elite has versus the grunts is that extra boost dice on both punching and shooting.
Yeah.
So they are a melee guard unit. And then we doubled down on how survivable they are. So they have 2 core abilities. They have Uncrushable, which says they can't be stomped.
Yep.
And that played out really interesting in a playtest game recently because I really wanted to stomp everything on your side of the board.
I had a nice, beautiful L of exosuits just ready to be stomped, and they were like, "No, we don't believe in that."
It was one of those situations where it's a perfect stomp, but you can't do it because these guys can't be stomped.
Yeah.
And then they have Hunker, and this is the ability on them that we're still playtesting. We're just playtesting the wording on it.
Yeah.
Hunker says right now, the unit does not suffer damage from brawl and blast attack triggers. So that means things like explosion and fling and those kind of things can't hurt these guys. So you have to shoot them specifically to kill them. And that wording might change because we're still playing around with it. But that's the effect that we're going for, in that if you shoot a building these guys are securing with a devastation attack like Zaxxor, it doesn't kill these guys.
Yeah.
Their armor is sturdy enough and they can kind of take the punch and that kind of stuff. And if Exploded Hawk dive bombs one of them, it doesn't blow the other ones up that are adjacent to them and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but it doesn't protect them from return from play effects. So like abduct and flak field and things like that.
And unstable
will
on the
still all
crawler
work.
and stuff like that will still kill them. And every other kind of power attack, like rampage and ram and those kind of things, will still kill these things.
Yep.
But we want to do something really interesting to give guard a melee unit that was also a defensive holding territory
Yeah.
piece.
I definitely noticed when I was playing these, unlike the guard tank where you tend to want to have them sit back and be in like the first 2 rows of buildings, these ones you really want to push forward.
Yeah,
You
these
want to
are-
put them
these-
on your enemy's territory.
And these are also good for holding midfield stuff because they're not going to get killed as easy, so you can risk holding midfield buildings with
Right,
them
exactly.
without them just getting blown up by Zaxxor or something.
Yeah,
They
normal
also-
unit cost is 1.
Yeah, it's cost 1 for the grunt and cost 2 for the elite, just like a standard unit. And then the specialist in this pack is the Monster Response Tank,
Or Mr. Tank.
or Mr. Tank, if you want to be a little cheeky about it, and that's why I named it that because it's
Yeah,
funny.
very, very cute.
But in setting, it's the Monster Response Tank. So this thing is built to take on monsters. It's big. It gives cover to friends that don't fly around it. So if your exosuits or your G-tanks or whatever are following this thing around, they get covered just like a building or a monster would give them. And then it has Big Game Hunter that says if it's part of an attack against a monster, it gets +2 boost dice.
Yeah.
So you can shoot a monster with this thing and roll 1 white die and 4 blue dice. Now that's not often going to hit a monster, but if you spike a roll,
Yeah.
that will equal 10.
No,
so
it's-
if all of your rolls are super strikes, you'll get a 10, which can hurt a monster.
I think you gave him 1 too many boost dice. It's one action die, 3 boost dice if he's shooting a monster. If he's punching something,
Oh, I
he
forgot.
gets 2 boost dice.
I forgot.
Yeah.
He's a little bit better at driving
So
over things.
when he's
because
fighting
he's so
units,
big.
he really wants to go up and
Yeah.
literally drive
Yeah.
over them, right?
Yeah,
He
I
just,
looked at I
wants
looked
to
at
crush
the
'em.
wrong number. So yeah,
Yeah.
three dice, which 1 white and 3 blues is still an 8, which hits most monsters.
Yeah.
If you roll as lucky as possible.
Yeah.
But if 2 of these things attack a monster, or if one of these leads an attack against a monster with a whole bunch of G-tanks or strike fighters or something else helping out, then that's definitely going to threaten monsters, especially those monsters like Armadax and stuff that have low defense because they have so much,
Yes, these
so
are
many ways to mitigate damage.
a very good counter to Armadax,
Yeah.
which is it's good because there needs to be more of those. So, boom, we've got some.
Yeah. So the next thing we're going to talk about is destroyer stuff. And the Planet Eaters are paired with the Guard this month on destroyers.
Yep.
And Zaxxor is the 3rd monster that Planet Eaters are going to get. We've been talking about him for a while. I think we've shown off concept art, and of course the renders have gone out. But he's the thing that's the least locked right now.
Correct.
In playtest.
Yeah, we keep on going back and forth on this monster.
He's
so-
been the thing that's been the most interesting to dial in because if you look at existing Planet Eaters, you've got Gorgadra, who is the very first monster that was on the destroyer side
and
at the
he
beginning
is
of the game.
the murder machine of murder
And
machines.
he's very in-your-face,
Yeah.
brawling, wants to punch things, wants to knock down buildings, wants to be on your opponent's side of the table, messing with them. And then you've got the exact opposite monster in Zaxxor. And Zaxxor wants to stay away from people as much as possible. And he still wants to blow up buildings and that kind of stuff. But he's not as much an in-your-face monster.
Yeah.
And he's not about punching things. He mostly shoots and power attacks. So we had this middle ground of it would be interesting to make a Planet Eater monster that either did both well or changed his mind
Yeah.
mid-game to play both things. So if you look at his stat card, which Tony will bring up in a second.
Wait.
Oh, there we
Nope.
go.
Nope.
So Zaxxor in his alpha is a shooting monster.
Yeah.
He has speed 6, def 8, health 5. He's pretty standard. Right now, one of the other things we're playtesting him at is 10 health total. But that might not stay because we're still dialing other things about him. But he has some cool abilities in his hyper that made that a thing. And so he's got energy cycle, which just makes him better at shooting things.
Very, very consistent. Yeah.
And he doesn't eat as many action dice for your other monster as some monsters will have to do. But then he has high mobility. He's the very first Planet Eater with high mobility.
Yep.
And if you look at the back of him when we see the next slide, he does have like a weird jetpack back kind of thing. So he's kind of got Planet Eater wings
Yeah.
under his carapace.
I assume he's like his wings are like manipulating gravity. In
Yeah,
some way, shape, or
he's an
form.
anti-grav
Yeah.
monster. Because the other thing that's really interesting about his alpha form is he hands out high mobility to allied faction units. So your chompers and your destructomites and your belchers
Yeah.
can hop over buildings and move through enemy models and that kind of stuff. So it's not going to give those guys a whole lot of mobility because they're not very fast, but the ability for a line of belchers to jump over some buildings
Right.
instead of having to go around, will really extend their range a lot. So, and if you played original Monsterpocalypse back 10 years ago, this is very, very similar to what Zaxxor did. He was a make your army more mobile monster, so we
Right.
wanted to keep that element of him.
Yep.
And then he has hit and run, so he has that same movement shenanigans situation that Nova has, but he has a range 5 hit and run in his
Yeah.
alpha. So he can play that backfield, support your models, give them all high mobility, and shoot things game. And then when he goes hyper, he completely changes his mind.
Yes. Yeah. Well, he 90% changes his mind. He still likes shooting occasionally.
Still likes shooting occasionally. He can still fire his guns, but he's not focused on firing his guns. But he is still focused on buffing units. So his hyper mode, he's the very first destroyer monster that has Blood Rage.
Hit that hyper. There it
There
is.
we go. Yeah. So you can see from, he's bouncing
Back and forth.
So you can see from that back shot, he does have weird like exhaust ports on his back for flying himself, and
Yeah.
he's giving out some sort of anti-gravity waves to his friends. But Blood Rage is the big deal, and Blood Rage is locked in and not going to change.
Yeah.
But Terracon has Blood Rage in 1 form, and King Kondo has Blood Rage in 2 forms.
Yep.
So Protectors have had a boost dice on brawl attacks for their units for a while. Since December of last year was when Terracon came out. This is the very first time that Destroyers are getting that. And it is allied faction units, so it's not going to apply to everything.
Yeah.
But it makes Chompers as good as Carnodons
Yeah.
under Terracon have been.
If not better.
So,
Yeah.
well, and Chompers do have Power Gorge, which is an ability that, and Carnodons don't have anything like
Yeah.
that. So Chompers are inherently just a tiny bit better, but now Chompers can go toe-to-toe with Carnodons when it comes to stats.
I don't know. I don't know. Can he make 3 attacks? Is that what we did to him? I think that's what we did to him.
So yeah. So questions in the chat. People are seeing what he's doing. So we want to do something crazy, and we had a conversation in the dev room. Hungerford was part of it, where Gorgadra is really good at his job, especially when Gorgadra goes hyper and all of his attacks do super damage, and you get a power die for anything that takes damage on your side of the table, and all that. Gorgadra is really good at doing his job.
Yes.
Rogzor is really, really good at doing his job. Rogzor blows up buildings, destroys your opponent's power base, can beat back in hyper mode. So we knew that whatever Zaxxor did, it had to be really, really awesome. And it had to give him a place inside his faction.
Yes.
And inside the agenda as a whole that was new and interesting.
Yeah.
And if you look at him, he has like giant blade guns. So he has bigger weapons than both of the other monsters in this faction. So the thing we're testing about him, and we've played with a couple of different wordings of this and a couple of different ways for it to work out, but he's got an ultimate weapon, which is a combination of rapid fire and lightning attack. It says he can make both a blast and a brawl in addition to whatever else he does. So if he wants to power attack and shoot and punch, or if he wants to shoot, power attack, or punch, shoot, or whatever, he can do all those things. And that's the one thing about him that might get tweaked a tiny bit in these last couple of playtests before he gets locked
The
down.
most important thing is he can't power attack twice, because that would be crazy and weird.
Cannot power attack twice.
Yeah.
But you'll also notice that he has 5 hit points in both forms, a lot like Rogzor.
Yes.
So Gorgadra is the beefiest of the Planet Eater monsters. And that dialing in the health on a monster really lets you play around with how powerful they can be in the game. And so we're trying to make a monster that's really impactful, but still doesn't survive a long time, because he never goes up to Def 9. He does keep high mobility in both forms, so that's different from Planet Eaters. But that ultimate weapon is the thing that we're dialing in on him.
Yeah.
And then he also has Power Gorge on his power attacks just for a little bit of extra fun. And thematically, the Planet Eaters are about killing things and getting extra power dice out of it.
Yeah.
So
It
if
makes
he
sense.
stomps things, he's going to get 1 additional power die for all that.
Yeah.
Or if he kills a monster with a body slam or something, he's going to get 2 instead of 1 for killing that monster.
And-
So it's not a massively impactful way to get power dice, but it's something.
Yeah, the one thing that people really, when they start to use Ultimate Weapon, are going to realize is that it's very, very action dice and power dice intensive.
The other
right?
thing about
He uses all the resources.
Anything that says you can do multiple attacks is you have to buy all those attacks. So it's a minimum 1 action die every time. And if you want to shoot, like if you want to shoot a monster, punch a monster, throw a monster, you probably don't have enough red dice for that. Like your power dice are going to run out because you're not going to get any power dice back for shooting the monster or punching it. And you might get power dice back for knocking buildings down. So it's really, really hard to push that ultimate weapon deep into a monster's health. Yeah. It's pretty good to walk up and smack a unit out of the way, step into a body slam or whatever, and then shoot one more unit just for the fun of it, because you probably only used 1 white die to kill each of those units. Because he does have 5 boost dice on his brawls and 4 boost dice on his blasts.
One thing he's very good at is clearing screens, even for other monsters that can't possibly clear a screen, because he's got the range 5 gun. Or range 3 in hyper. It goes down to range 3.
He cares less about shooting hyper mode, so his range does go down.
Yeah, so I mean, but he can still clear somebody far away, fight somebody in melee, and then take the step into combat. So imagine that Zaxxor is probably locked in at that, but we are still playing around. Zaxxor.
I
keep on their names screwing up all their names.
So hopefully this is the very final version of Zaxxor, but we are going to possibly tweak anything that we find a problem with this afternoon.
Yeah.
And now the units. So this month is a paired unit and monster pack for both factions. That's not always going to be the case for every single month, because sometimes schedules turn around and sometimes models end up being in production longer than necessary and that kind of stuff because of a thing like a move or whatever. But November definitely is a factions stick together kind of month. And the unit pack is Scorchers and the Exterminatrix. So Scorchers are returning from the old game. A lot of things that you're seeing in Monsterpocalypse 2 are things from the original Monsterpocalypse, but not everything. And this unit pack is one of those examples. So Scorchers are a flying unit for Planet Eaters. So the only flying units they had before was Explodahawks.
And they died.
And Explodahawks are great at their job, but they're not good at any other job. So if you want to hold a with an Explodahawk because you need something that can stop on top of water, then that Explodahawk's going to get shot pretty easy by almost anything that wants to shoot him. So it's really hard to hold ground with Explodahawks. So we're giving Planet Eaters another flying unit so they can hover over water or hazards or whatever else you need positioning-wise. And they have Def 2, which does go up to 3 if they're holding a building because of cover. They're a little bit slower than Explodahawks. And this is, of course, the Elite, so it costs 2. Their normal ones cost 1.
It have 1 less boost die.
They have a very short but pretty good ranged attack in their blast. And they have an okay brawl. They have 2 action dice, and the Elite gets 1 boost dice. So they can brawl things. They're not going to brawl things very often. And the thing that makes them really interesting is I've talked about, and I did this at the Lock and Load keynote, Incinerus, the Elementals champion flame monster, he's going to have ways to light rubble on fire. But he's not coming out until, I believe, January. So Scorchers were a perfect place to give destroyers a way to light rubble fires.
And yet another important counter to the Armadax, especially like Armadax Hondo. You know, putting those fires on the table helps get those guys off the table.
If you think your opponent is trying to set up some sort of shenanigans where they're going to repair a Tokyo Tower onto a rubble pile to throw you into something, you can light the rubble pile on fire. Now, it won't prevent you from taking damage from being thrown there, but it will keep them from putting that building back as easily. So that's an interesting angle on these guys. And you can always light rubble on fire to protect your monster from some sort of power attack. Like, if your opponent's got 1 hit point on their monster and there's rubble in front of your monster and they're going to try and body slam you, you can just fly up and light that rubble on fire, and then they're going to die if they touch it. So this is an interesting positioning piece for a couple of different things, and just a regular mainline flying unit for Planet Eaters, which they have been lacking up until now.
Definitely.
And then the Exterminatrix is the specialist in this pack. And a lot of times specialists are either support models, or they're offensive models, or they do a little bit of both, or they're things like the saucers in Martians, which only have 1 job. The Exterminatrix only has 1 job, but it's murdering things.
And really his main job is to channel other people through him to get all his super cool rules.
So it's a cost 2 specialist. It is pretty defensive at def 3, but it's kind of slow at speed 4. It doesn't have a brawl attack, so it's only shooting things. And its range is only 4 on its blast because its blast is pretty powerful.
Yeah.
So it's got 3 action dice and 2 boost dice. So just standard, it's okay at shooting things.
Yeah.
But where it really shines is it has Demolisher and Devastation. So if it targets buildings, it gets an extra power die for killing the building, and it blows up everything that's not an exosuit that's touching that building. And then just to make it a little bit more reliable on shooting, it has Penetrator. So it can try to take an apartment building down by itself.
Yes.
It's not gonna often.
Not super consistent.
It's not gonna often
but it
kill
can
an
do
apartment
it.
building by itself. But this thing, like Faye said, leading combined attacks. Like if it gets close enough to a building and some scorchers fly in, then it can totally knock that building down and blow up a bunch of stuff around it, and get you an extra power die for killing that building. So it's leaning into that theme of destroyers and planet eaters especially like to kill things to get power dice, and it has devastation just like Roxor. So Roxor's giving it an extra boost dice to shoot because Roxor does that for all planet eaters that shoot.
Yep.
So Roxor and these things are really good combos for knocking down a bunch of buildings.
Yeah, these things have been very consistent at blowing up all of my dudes, which I don't appreciate.
They also, they're really interesting because that middle table game where you're trying to secure buildings and stuff, these are the piece that punishes you for trying to secure those mid-tier.
Exactly.
Because you can spawn it out and then get some belchers to help it or whatever and knock a building down that's in the middle of the table and wipe out all the units that are touching it unless they happen to be exosuits. So this month kind of has a little bit of counterplay.
It does.
Between the Exterminatrix and the exosuits.
Yeah. Very, very cool.
And that is all of the models that are releasing for Monsterpocalypse in November. So I have not been paying attention to the chat. Tony has been pointing things out, and Faye's been.
I've occasionally
Faye's
answered
been
a question,
answering
but do we
things.
have any other cool questions?
So, so Jacob is asking if we could ever see an 8 health monster.
That's really low.
So Incinerus' theme, and his rules are drafted. We haven't play tested him yet. He's coming out in January, like I said, as far as I know. Incinerus is all about lighting fires. So right now, Incinerus has Action Ignite, just like the Scorcher. And in Hyper, Incinerus has Fire Step, which is like Waterlogged in that Waterlogged puts fires out. Fire Step lights fires when
As
he
he
just walks
walks.
through rubble.
Yeah.
So he just gets free Ignite
Yeah.
all the time. And he's fireproof. He's immune to hazards all the time.
Yeah.
So what we're testing on Incinerus is he too unkillable because he doesn't ever take damage from hazards?
Yeah.
Now that might mean he has to have lower health. I don't think he'd have 8 health.
I think
Right now, 10
nine
is the lowest
possible.
we've ever gone, and
But-
12 is the highest we've
Yeah.
ever gone. But I could see pushing monsters to 13 and to 9, but only in a situation where that's what makes the monster the funnest it is to play. And an 8 health monster would, like, especially with Carnage Corners coming out soon, the map that has the triple buildings in 2 opposite
I'm really
corners.
looking forward to people getting Carnage Corners.
You could easily, with the perfect throw, kill a monster in one hit that had 4 or 5 hit points.
Yeah.
So we want to be careful about that kind of stuff because your monster staying in play for a while is fun, but your monster getting body slammed once and being more than half dead is not that fun.
Yeah, no.
Like if you get thrown into 2 buildings that are also fire, that's 5 damage.
Yeah.
So these monsters with 5 health in a form, they can go half health or all the way dead, depending on which form they're in. Really easy with a lot of maps. And then there are ways for people to get, like, Gorgadra and a few other people can do super damage easily.
Yeah.
Especially Gorgadra's power attack's doing super damage when he's hyper. So that's 6 damage on that attack. And if you get that triple building foundation on Carnage Corners, that's an extra couple of points of damage.
Yeah.
So I doubt we'll ever go all the way to 8, but if we make some monster that's ridiculously powerful, maybe.
Yeah.
And Gorgadratron, recently, we saw that. Gorgadratron's alpha is 7 and hyper is 4.
Yeah.
Because Gorgadratron's hyper is super powerful
Yes.
and really dangerous to monsters, so we didn't want him staying on the table in hyper mode very long, but we didn't want him to have less than 11 hit points total.
Yeah.
So
It
that
is
kind of
it is
thing
possible to send him from his last alpha point to dead never going into hyper, and we kind of want it that way. We just want it to be real hard to do.
Yeah. So there's another interesting, weird question about other factions like demons and stuff. So right now we're hitting on a lot of the classic stuff from Monsterpocalypse.
Yeah.
We are sometimes changing things out, like the Hellion and the Exterminatrix and those kind of things, because sometimes we just want something slightly different. We're not going to not bring back those units that might have been paired with that stuff originally, but we just want something a little bit more interesting. And we are pushing into brand new territory with things like Sergeant Titanica and Globicus, and then next summer's factions, what I keep talking about, are Space Dragons and some sort of big chunky evil robots.
I'm super looking forward to Space Dragons.
So we are going to do new things, but we're not talking about every single new thing we could ever do all in the far-flung future. Because there was an interview I believe Matt Wilson gave in 2009 at Gen Con, where he just started rattling off things like zombies and all kinds of random stuff from Monsterpocalypse, and a lot of that stuff never happened.
Yeah.
So I don't want to get someone's hopes up and say that, oh yeah, we're totally going to do faction Y in 2023 if plans change and all that stuff. That's too far out to talk
2023
about stuff.
is crazy to talk about.
It's definitely a plan right now, and it's locked in and happening, that we're doing Space Dragons and giant evil robots.
Also, Thule
for
are
next
kind
summer.
of demons, right?
And yeah, Lords of Cthulhu are extra-dimensional, demonic-ish beings. They're very Cthulhu-inspired. They're not like standard, like, you know, pitchfork and horns and stuff kind of demons.
Of course.
So, and that is possible, but we're not going to talk about all that kind of stuff. But you can look forward to Sergeant Titanica's normal release and the Blob Monster early next year, and then 2 new factions.
Oh, I'm so looking
around
forward to
Lock and Load.
Globicus.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to balancing out the fact that he's 2 monsters in his hyper mode.
Yeah, it's gonna be a challenge,
Yeah.
and that's our job. Is the challenge.
Thick Legs on the Twitch chat says that they need sharks and fish. A shark is coming.
Yeah.
Leviathan, the armored shark, which you can see behind. Is it behind Faye? Yeah. So Faye can't probably move far enough. But if you
No,
look
I
at this
can't.
versions of this image that are on the internet,
Yeah.
Leviathan is in the background. And Leviathan's a big armored shark, like a I don't know, some sort of Mesozoic shark or whatever. I don't know. I can't remember my dinosaur eons correctly. I'm sorry if I ruined someone's entire nerd.
You know what?
life
I actually
just
have
now.
no idea when the giant sharks were.
I used to know all
existent.
kinds of words about dinosaurs,
Yeah.
but I don't anymore. So yeah. So sharks are coming, and the eels and the steel shell crabs
Yes.
are also coming.
I just saw
more
the
than
masters of
likely-
those.
More than likely in January. So Tritons are going to get their first unit pack
Yeah.
around the first of the year.
Those eels are just cute little slippery guys. I
And
like them.
yes, I'm the hidden elephant. I love people's chat names. Wants to know about Subterran Uprising, and yeah, the Molochs, both the Brutes and Berserkers, are early next year in a blister pack too. And then his name is more than likely Blasticutter. So Blastic.
I haven't heard that name yet.
Well, yeah. So if you've seen pictures of mole things from the original game, everything had a human name and then a mole name, and I can't remember half of them. So they were something like Hammerclack, Dash, and then what the moles called them, and we dropped that kind of idea because it's a little bit confusing and weird, and they're words you can't pronounce. So Hammerclack is the first mole monster, and then the first half of the second mole monster, the 2-headed one's name was Blastic. But I wanted an extra syllable that made it feel kind of like Hammerclack. And he's got a gun and a chainsaw hand, so we're calling him Blasticutter. So that's the second mole monster that's coming out next year. Pretty early next year.
It's super on the nose. I love
But
it.
yeah. So yeah, you're welcome. Yes, I'm the hidden elephant. And yeah, you can if you're like Tacactus, whatever your name is. If you want to call them by their weird old names, you can do that.
Yeah, find them.
It's no problem. You can
Freak out new
I
players.
pronounce White Dejan's name different almost every time I say it.
Dejan,
So,
Dejan, Dejan.
Yeah. So yeah. So I believe that the moles and the Tritons units are coming out in January, and Incinerus and Zizarax are coming out in January too. So that's one of those months where the unit packs and the monsters don't line up faction-wise, but they're still destroyers and protectors for both sides. Do we have any other
Super cool questions?
interesting things in chat? Tony's highlighted
Oh, yes.
Savage Swarm is destroyers and elementals are protectors.
That's correct.
Yeah, Hunter. So I'm trying to keep things as logical as possible, but every once in a while, those factions like invaders and stuff from the old game, where they're not necessarily good or bad. And I'm trying to follow the rule now of things that are native to Earth want to protect it, and things that are not native to Earth want to destroy it. Now the Savage Swarm is weird. The Savage Swarm are giant bug monsters, but bugs are traditionally in a lot of mythology and stuff a swarm of destruction.
Yes.
So it makes sense to do that. And elemental champions are literally the Earth, the power of the Earth defending itself. There's no elemental champion for heart, but we do have fire and earth and water and wind.
We can't combine and make a superhero?
No.
Dang
no.
it.
So we're going to do Incinerus, the fire monk first, and then maybe Tectomoch or Aquosha or one of the other monks. And I don't know what their units are going to be if you're a fan of the old elemental champions, because a lot of their units were like just a rock or a fire or whatever. So we're going to probably reimagine them a little bit more visually and do some interesting things, but they're probably still going to be earth spirits and that kind of stuff. Tony had a question about Riot Quest up there, but now I don't.
Yeah, it's still there. I mean, nothing Riot Quest today. I think we're probably going to be talking about Riot Quest either next week or the week after.
Yeah.
So it's coming.
We do rotate these shows topic-wise, and every once in a while, if we have something really topical and time-sensitive, we do mention something else.
Yeah.
But this show was Monsterpocalypse and the Archon cards, and then when Hungerford's back, traveling today, I believe, back from the swamps, we'll talk about Riot Quest maybe next week.
If I have any say in the matter, combiners never, and I know you agree on that.
Yeah, sorry, no combiners.
Yeah.
We might do an idea like that, like Globicus the Blob gets split in half, and he has his regular model that Alpha and Hyper, and then he has a secondary, slightly smaller Hyper monster that's like a chunk of him falling off.
Yeah.
So we're going to play around with things like that, but we're not going to do like literally these 4 or 5 little things turn into one big thing.
It's a real big headache.
It's confusing and weird. Okay, so unless there's anything else that Tony has seen, we're going to be done. Okay, so like we said at the beginning of this, you can tune in to watch us live stream a couple of times a week, consistently on Wednesdays and Thursdays for us talking about dev stuff or painting. And then the hobby hangout is happening pretty consistently with a rotating host schedule. And that is happening on Friday this week. And then next Tuesday, we're going to play some War Machine.
And remember to keep on supporting Hobby Hangouts, or we're going to cancel it.
Yeah.
It's going to go.
Yeah,
I have to keep that going because Hungerford's still in Louisiana. So that's my job here, to be sure that all of the important things keep on going.
And we haven't mentioned it lately, so subscribe on Twitch if you haven't already and get access to 7 emojis. Tony's going to update that image. Chibi Eris is also on there. And we got enough to add Chibi Ashlyn after the show's over. So we'll have 8 emojis for you. And remember also, I remind you of this every week, but I forgot earlier. If you have a Amazon Prime membership, you get 1 free Twitch subscription. All you got to do is click a button, and you don't have to do anything else. Doesn't charge you any extra money. Anything else, it just gives us a subscription.
Yeah, don't let that sit around in your closet.
Yeah, and it resets every month.
Use it on us.
So if you have subscribed earlier to somebody else and you like us and you want to give us 1 month of subscriptions or whatever, or you just want access to Hamilton for a month, then you can do that. Just go to Twitch, and as long as you're signed on and all that stuff, you can push that button and give us a couple dollars completely out of Amazon's pocket. Nothing gets charged to you.
Yay.
And thank you very much for watching. Thanks to Faye for being on and helping me talk about Monpoc today.
Yeah, well, Monpoc's pretty cool.
And now, after lunch, we're going to go play test and get those rules completely locked in.
Even more Monpoc. We're having a Monpoc day.
It's a Monpoc day. All day long. All Monpoc. All the time.
All right.
Okay, thanks very much.
Bye-bye.
See you guys tomorrow or whenever. Maybe.